welcome to episode 10 of my attempt at colonizing Duna. Previous episode we've assembled our rovers, they're docked up, ready to go on the surface. Today it's time to redesign the taxi I designed in episode 2 because it was too big and inefficient. So I decided to remake it, and instead of using girders I even used smaller fuel tanks, so every part of this thing is fuel, fuel, and more fuel. I really want to make it there, especially each time I send any mission to Duna so far. I have never managed to get the same orbit as I had originally with the space station. So there's a lot of maneuvering once arriving at Duna that has to be done, which means more fuel. It's some of the hardest maneuvering because you just no other way just to burn it. You have to burn for it. Anyway, so this way I save about an orange fuel worth the weight compared to the previous version of this taxi, and I think the lander weighs under 10 tons, so anything under 10 tons I can bring from Kerbal to Duna, like maybe another rover that I might want to bring to Duna at some point. I just have to bring it to the taxi that could be at the Kerbal refueling station, dock it there, and then launch it from there. Instead of having to each time make a huge rocket that has to bring it to Duna, I can just make a small rocket that can make it to that space station every time, and then use that reusable vessel to constantly just make the travels. It's not the most efficient thing. Could be a little lighter, but I just wanted to make sure I had enough fuel, and hopefully also, because weirdly enough, those girders and docking ports make it possible for the nuclear engines to use the fuel in the lander. I'll have to disable them somehow so they don't do that, so the lander still is fueled, so only the 3 orange tanks worth of fuel from the taxi itself will be used. But we'll have to see once we get there, because I can always use the lander fuel if for some weird reason I'm running out of everything and I have to go for it. It's better not to use it, but if it's gotta be used, well, it's there. Can always be refueled around Duna, their space station. There's got about 4 fuel tanks worth of fuel there, so it should be fine. And I decided to reuse the heavy launcher that keeps on making the rotation of doom when it's doing the gravity turn. Thought by strutting it would stop it, but originally I wanted to redesign it from scratch, but I got lazy again, reused it. It's working. If you don't mind rotating like crazy, it's working pretty fine. It ended up pushing me almost all the way to Duna, to the encounter I wanted. But yeah, I had to switch to nuclear engines short of that. That was pretty cool though. It's a nice little taxi. It's pretty cool. Those nuclear engines that the mod is using, those 280 thrust, they weigh about 8 tons, so you get 280, so you really got 20 tons of power, but they're about the same as if I stacked 4.5 stock ones, so it's not like an advantage or anything. It's just more aesthetic than just stacking 5, because I'd have to stick girders and then the engines, and it doesn't look that pretty. Trying to see what it looks like, you can look at episode 2. It's got those that weird way of stacking nuclear engines with girders and sticking them side by side. I think they only had 4 per branch of the taxi. We could go with 5. You can stick another one in the middle if you wanted, but it's prettier looking with these. The mod, I don't know if it's available now. The forum post keeps saying unavailable, unavailable. It sucks because it's pretty cool. It's since that there was the spaceport to curse change for the mod hosting, the thing is still not available. I wish it comes available at some point, because the models are nice. They just overheat a little too much, maybe. It's just, you have to manage them. It's always doable. If you see in the previous episode, you'll see what happens with the gravity turn with this heavy launcher. It will start to rotate. And maybe it's at this point I'm thinking it's too much SAS and it just rotates, so maybe the SAS is not aligned on the same thing, and I would have to remake it completely. And here the staging went wrong because it's designed for heavier payload, where the liquid fuel is supposed to be running at 100%. thrust all the time, but this is just so light that it can run at 75. But then the solid fuel boosters end up running longer, well, shorter than the liquid fuel anyway. So the staging was wrong, but I was lucky enough. There was gravity turn time, and here's the rotation that starts. That mighty rotation of doom. Really annoying. I'll eventually figure out what's wrong with this thing. I've looked at it, everything's lined up. The fuel consumption is right, so it's not like one side is depleting faster than the other. It's a matter of either SAS at this point, something not aligned. I don't know. But it'll make it into orbit and even further. There's so much fuel, liquid fuel, that it ends up pushing it, as I said earlier, almost all the way to Duna. I have to kick in the nuclear stage for the finishing up the encounter and all the maneuvering around Duna to make it to the space station, because we end up arriving with like 160 degrees inclination to our station, which ends up costing me a lot of fuel. But it was my worst encounter with that station. I'm hoping it never happens again, because normally the taxi has to make it from the Kerbal Refueling Station to the Duna Refueling Station, and that on nuclear engines alone. They won't have any boost from any liquid fuel boosters or anything. I tried it before, it was working, so it should work again as long as I don't get any of these encounters again. I mean, it's one of the worst one when you think about it. 160 is so close to 180. I mean, the worst I could get is 180, and I got 160, so if it works for 160, it'll work for anything. And there's a docking port on this, so if it does, as long as I get an orbit around something, and I'm not desperately like moving in a straight line outside the solar system, I don't see how that could even happen. I don't have delta V on this thing, but I can always refuel it. So, and it would make a nice rescue mission. So it's doable. Hope it doesn't happen. Knock on wood, but we'll see what happens. But so here we are, we got our orbit around Kerbal. We're about to start heading for Duna. Duna's not in the right position yet, so we have to do a quick orbit around the sun to get the right position. And we're just trying to escape Kerbal right now. Get away from it, Kerbal. We've been here too long. There's probably still a lot of science I could get from Kerbal alone. I've never been to the poles yet, at least not on this save. I've gone the ocean, got the highlands, midlands, but I haven't gotten to the poles yet, so I could maybe even set up a little base there. That'd be cool. With the rover. Little garage, but I need those square plate things. I could start making some things with better shapes. And garage for rovers and things that would look like buildings. Not just made out of girders like I'm trying to make right now. Like the control tower I designed recently is just straight up made out of girders. It's light, but it doesn't look too cool. Could be better. So we're burning. About to get our escape. And once in orbit around the sun, I think Duna will be like 180 degrees ahead of us. Again, not the perfect thing, but it's because the last mission was a mission to Duna. And I had to orbit around the sun again, so. As I said in prior episode, I should have actually launched all these missions at the same time. At high orbit around Kerbal and then launch them all towards Duna. So I don't have to wait for 29 different encounters. And end up spending years. 'Cause I mean, the poor landman Kerbal that's on Duna's surface has been there for probably, what, 9 years now? I don't even know. It's got to be ridiculous. I have to check in this tracking center when I get back to KSP center. It's going to be funny. But after all, this is his rescue mission also, because the empty seat in the lander is reserved for him. So he doesn't have to man those rovers anymore. He's repped so many wheels, he's probably going to have to rep so many more, because he'll have to drive those to the equator somewhere. At a flat landing site, so we can start building our ground base. So this lander is still going to be remaining in orbit around Duna until landman on the ground finds a good spot, because I'll try and land that lander there instead of just trying to land it randomly somewhere and then end up seeing that it's not the perfect landing site for a space plane, having to move it and blah blah blah. So might as well do the driving on the ground before. I'll still have to design all the modules that will go on the ground and something to launch them. If they're under 10 tons, I can use this the taxi to move them, but they can't be too wide either then, because if they're too wide, the thrust from the well, the exhaust from the engines ends up being on top of them. The spacecraft itself won't generate any thrust. The engines will, but it'll generate thrust on top of the module themselves, which make the craft not moving at all. But it's a 4x symmetry too, so there's ways to build around it. It can be wider than this lander, as you can see. There's still room around it. It's just a matter of designing it properly and under 10 tons. But if I have a crane on the ground, I can have multiple small parts that each weigh 10 tons, just assemble them on top of each other on the side, or just move them. It'll be a matter of sending them again, and we'll see. The only issue with that is the taxi might have to somehow get them in an air brake course with Duna, then decouple, then reaccelerate so it stays itself in orbit, and then dock back to the station. Or I could just dock it to the station and then have some sort of propulsion on those mods themselves to deorbit them. I'll have to see what I can do. Probably it's the easiest way. But then I can't really guarantee where they're gonna land. Whereas if I just set the taxi on the equator, get in right orbit, meh. Issues. I have to see. Design issues. Anyway, so we'll start burning for our Duna encounter. We're still on the liquid stage fuel, so not even using the nuclear engines yet. Still using the liquid fuel booster for central stage. It's end up running out of fuel, and then when I activate the nuclear engines, only one fires up, so I end up rotating on myself. I see fast enough so it doesn't really change much. I still get the Duna encounter I wanted. With that little lander behind us. Little lander of doom. I still hope it can actually lift off Duna. I think it should be, because it barely lifted off Kerbal. So with the atmosphere being thinner on Duna, should be alright. It's not like I have a choice anyway, because now we're on our way to it. I know it's not gonna land now, but even if it remains in orbit for a while, it's the poor Kirk or Fursey, I don't even remember or know actually at the moment who's gonna land. They might want to know that they'll be able to lift off, because if these rescue missions end up failing, I might have 2 Kerbals to rescue instead of just 1, which means I have to send a command pod or an empty landing can. Yeah, that'd be bad. Failing the rescue mission? No. And it's not that failure is not an option. I mean, failure is always an option. I always laugh when people say failure is not an option, because holy crap, it's the easiest thing to do. But especially in KSP, because all you have to do if you want to fail is just do nothing sometimes, and you just end up crashing on a planet. So yeah, or just keep orbiting desperately out of fuel around the sun. That's been happening to me. My first ever Kerbal missions ever. There's this kind of epic failures trying to discover the game and how it works, and getting bored of the mun and trying to go, oh, well, I'm gonna go see what's around the sun. I can't get back. Oh shit. I barely manage the node systems, and it's only really now that I can start like heading to the VAB, design something, and have a rough idea of where that thing can go. So it's pretty cool. And this taxi is gonna make it so easy for me to make it to Duna and back, and transport, as I said, anything under 10 tons and not too wide. But even if it's wide, it can be very long. There's nothing against that. It could be very, very long, as long as it's not then an issue within the docking port to be in front. I want to say the symmetry will be a problem maybe, but we'll have to see. So here we are on Duna. trying to maneuver so we can finally attempt to get the encounter with our station after, of course, getting a decent orbit, because our orbit is not even finalized yet. But here it is, slowing down. I think you see I make it with a lot of fuel left, and a lot of this fuel will be consumed just trying to rectify the 163 something degrees inclination that I get with that damn station, because I end up rotating the wrong way. I'm going clockwise, and I think the station is going counterclockwise, which is a little annoying. I did it in 2 nodes just to make sure I don't end up catapulting away from Duna again, because it's a little annoying. Going up, there's no up in space, but going up, then burning retrograde, going up retrograde, up retrograde, and trying to keep an orbit decent enough. And eventually also the rovers that are already on the ground will have to be moved. So you see they're pretty north right now. It's probably a good, I'd say, 150, 200 kilometers to the center. And it'll, looking at it, it looks pretty rough terrain. So I have to find a good landing spot there. It'll be pretty tough. But what can I do? It's got to be done. So we need a flat spot for a space plane. And I might have to send a docking adapter or something, or a connection hub or something with more docking ports, so we can dock more things at the Duna Refueling Station. Because there will be this taxi. There is always the pusher that pushed the station there originally, that's still there in case I want to move it, or station gets too close, or I bump into it, or for whatever reason it's got to be moved. It's still there. I can put fuel in it and use it, but it's occupying the senior docking port at the bottom, with the taxi occupying one of the small ones, and only leaves 3 opens. If I do bring a hitchhiker module with a docking port just to transport Kerbals back and forth, there'll be another one that'll be used, leaving just 2. Yeah, so it's just the space plane that will be there will occupy one, so there will be one free to probably just like a fuel tank with girders on each side and docking ports, so I can dock extra things. So there's a hub or something. So we're trying to get our second node going so we can get that perfect orbit with our station. I think I end up getting 0.1 degree or something. It is close enough. At this point, after 260 degree burn, I was just so happy. Even 0.1 works for me. Then the usual burn, and then the waiting game, of course. Waiting for this damn station and ship to align. Because it's not like I got it on the first time, but in the end, I end up getting like a 800, 900 meters approach to it, with like 100 meters to kill, 100 meters per second, and then the fuel to do it. So it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad at all for one of the worst encounters possible. Because as I said, the worst encounter, worse than this could have been, is 180 degrees, and I got 163, so it can only be 17 degrees more, which is nothing. Probably like another minute of burn or something. It's not like at this point it really matters. I could have used the fuel from the lander if it really gets to 180 degrees, and then just refuel it at the station. Come on, Kirk. Here we go. And he's got it. He's got it. Stop. No more. Stop. Now the waiting game. Let's see. I think it was a good 5-6 orbits before anything happened, because it wasn't lining up. Then I had to maneuver a little bit more to get the right thing, because I was impatient, of course. There are 2 ways to play this game. You can plan everything from the beginning, and you don't have to wait anywhere, because you can launch straight from Kerbal and head straight to Duna without even going through the sun orbit part. But it takes planning. Me and planning. With work, I just don't really have time to plan things. I just play and record and do a little video editing on the side because I like to edit videos, even though I'd seen that in the last one there was some weird effect with the 4x speed. The rovers on the ground like phased in and out of existence, and the rocks as well. So I think 3x speed can be the most that it can handle, or I'll have to record it more than 30 frames per second because yeah, it does weird things. But anyway, here we got our node set up, so we get our encounter below 1 kilometer with the station. It's only, I don't even see how many seconds it is, but it's negligible. Just have to get to our Apple apps. Come on, get to it. Here we are. Perfect. Could have gotten a little closer. 0.6, 0.7, but we got 0.8. Not too bad. There'll be a lot of speed to kill, but not too much. I mean, 100 meters per second is not too bad. After all, we're coming from a couple million meters away, so it won't really matter. A couple millions, probably a couple billions, a couple millions kilometers, so a couple billion meters. Go through the station, getting ready to slow down. I wish I could get the Better Planet thing going, because I was looking at Dave's video when he was lifting off for the sun, and it was just, oh my god, the clouds and shit look so nice. I tried again and it's not showing up. It's supposed to be installed, but you see it's not installed. You saw when I lifted off curb and there was no clouds, no nothing. I should really try again, and I haven't really not had the time. I got about an hour a day or so to replay, so between Eve and KSP, an hour a day, it's not much. Should I make a video? Heading to Duna, it just takes about an hour and a half, really. If you start from designing the rocket and heading there, and then yeah, but this, yeah, you have to do it. My to-do list is just so long, and with this Duna thing, just crazy. Especially if you've seen at some point in the map, solar system map, there's an asteroid that Kerbal catapulted almost 3/4 of the way to Duna, and I was thinking about finishing that that asteroid's orbit and just push it all the way to Duna and just land it really on the surface, because that'd be cool. It's always almost there already. It wouldn't take really that much fuel to do it. I don't remember the size of it, but it's 3/4 of the way there, so how hard could it be? Now with my luck it's going to be a class E, but that would be even better, because that would be a real challenge. So we were approaching killing our speed relative to our target. Still have to open all our docking ports, because at this point I wasn't sure which one I would actually have to go for. There's also the weird axe, figuring out which axis you're on, especially with these. But it's definitely easier to maneuver this than it would have been to maneuver the actual taxi that I designed in episode 2, because it would have been so heavy at turning the damn thing. Yeah. At least this, it's a little more maneuverable. Save easily a good 40 tons, if not more. Originally the taxi had that 750 unit monoprop unit tank, which also weighs a lot. This only got those 4 side ones, which are more than enough for what it needs to do. And since they can be refueled at either the Duna Refueling Station or the Kerbal Refueling Station, depending on where it's parked, doesn't really matter. So here you saw on the refueling station, there's still got the pusher I was talking about. It's still there in case that station needs to be moved, or Because I might bring it in a higher orbit than the 100K orbit, just for time warp issues, uh, for launch windows and things. Because after all, that taxi will have to have an opportunity to launch to Kerbal. The other issue is that since the space station is on a polar orbit, launching to Kerbal might be a challenge because I will always launch it 90 degrees inclination to it. So I don't know if I'll have to do first a burn to actually get to that 90 degree, well, planar orbit with Kerbal, but it'll be a 90-degree change at least, maybe 80 something in one. Well, we'll see. I'll have to be probably a couple more episodes. I don't know when I'll bring Landman back from the surface. I'll have to drive to the equator. Then the lander has to drop. Then we'll have to send more modules. It'll take a while. But here is Kirk or Percy. I don't know who's at the wheel at the moment, but he's trying to desperately dock with the RCS port activated on the lander, which doesn't help at all because it rotates on itself. Should have deactivated them. Or actually put the medium ones on. Design issues. But I've done so many things lately that it hasn't been too hard. It's just a little more wasteful than it could be. But once you get close enough, the magnets from the docking ports are strong enough to align you perfectly, and it's just a matter of just waiting, deactivating SAS, reactivating it, and stabilizing the vessels, making sure you don't get bounced too far away from it. And in the end, it docks together. It's just a matter of time now. Come on, taxi. Dock up. You know you want to. It's not like you want to be lost in space without fuel anyway. There you go, come on. Because each time it touches the station, it actually changes the orbit, so the smoother the docking, the less orbital change you get. There's a couple good pushes there to provide it to the station. I hope it was probably change the inclination, not actually the orbit itself, because it's not like pushing towards the planet, so it'll be alright. But here we are, it's docked. So Kendrick, Percy, and Kirk are united. Just have to see exactly. We need a pilot for our taxi now, and the lander only needs one Kerbal to meet up with Landman on the ground, or else there won't be a seat open for him, because those rovers can operate by themselves or unmanned, so no need for Kerbal there now. Well, technically there is a need for Kerbals there. And repair the wheels, repair everything they can break. Come on, poor Cameron. Here's the internal view from the Cupola module. He sees strictly nothing. He only sees Duna once he's north above the poles. The North Pole, actually, the South Pole, he only looks at the deepness of the space. But who is going to make it? Percy Kerman is going to be our pilot for the taxi. Trying to get that EVA going. Little rocket pack. Go for it, man. He's inspecting everything, making sure that nothing broke. Everything looks pretty cool. You can do it, man. You can do it. You brought us here. I'm sure you will bring many more Kerbals here if you're the pilot of that ship. And probably many more cool modules. Oh, he missed the ladder. Quick, jetpack. There you go. Second attempt. Should have rotated a little bit too. I don't know why. It's pretty tough to get that ladder. Come on, go, get in. Ah, waiting for that board thing to show up. this. Too late. I just grabbed it. But never mind, he's in it now. So we got our pilot. We've got our lander ready. We got our station. Could have refueled the taxi, but no really need for it. We got Kirk ready to go and rescue Landman in his lander. I wish he would have given us the thumbs up because he should be happy right now. He's ready to go. We have no view at all from that command pod. Poor Fercy Kerman. He's gonna be bored in there. Guess freaking nothing to do. Anywho, guys, thanks for watching. Next episode, we'll be driving those rovers to the equator, scoping a nice landing spot for our space plane. And I know what I forgot to do. Design the damn space crane. So, the space crane, the Duna crane. So that will be for next episode as well. See you later.